Hello, hello, hello. Today in GCSE Economics, we're looking at population. Let's get into it. So today we're going to look at the factors that affect population growth, reasons for different growth rates in population, and how population is changing in different countries. Any idea what affects population growth in different countries? First, migration. Are people moving over to your country, or are they emigrating, leaving your country? How many babies are they having? And we know in developed countries, this number is getting smaller and smaller every year. How fast are you all dying? In developed countries as well, people are living much longer lives. So this causes all kinds of issues with pensions and stuff. Looking at the stats earlier, 20% of tax income in the UK goes on pensions. Wild. And here's the blessed emigration that I mentioned. I have done that myself. So here's a little task. Have a look on your phone. Find the birth rates from your country. Are they growing or declining? Why do you think that is? Let me show you some stats. We can see that undeveloped countries like Angola and Chad have a massively high birth rate per 1,000 people. But countries that are developed like Japan, Italy, they have a really low birth rate per 1,000 people. Why do you think this discrepancy exists? Let's have a look. So in many of these countries, we have limited access to contraception. Contraception is basically the pill. You take it, you don't get pregnant. And also there's a cultural significance with having large families. Some countries prefer to have larger families. Lower levels of education can also be a problem. In some countries, they refuse to use contraception. And sadly, in some countries, economic factors exist where the child is required to work to help the family. So rather than bringing a child into the world because you want to, some people do it out of necessity. Next, if we take a look at the developed countries, Italy, aging population, less willingness to have children, women in the workforce. Sometimes financial difficulties cause people to stop marrying, stop having babies. A lot of people are waiting until they are financially secure before they can do so. And like I just said, career is a really important thing in developed countries where men and women are equal and both are in the workforce and both are working hard to give themselves a better life. Some people simply don't have the time or the patience for it anymore. And it can be so difficult if you have a child and you're both working. It means they would have to hire someone to look after the baby. So yeah, aging population, career focus, and money issues are all leading to less births in these countries. How about death rates? Look at these death rates. What does all of this imply? We see the top 5 countries with death rates, and we see the bottom 5 with death rates. Surprisingly, it's the Middle East that has the lowest amount of death rates. Why do you think that is? Well, they're generally wealthy countries, aren't they? Which means they've probably got access to great medical support. Here's a few reasons. Bulgaria, actually, if they have an aging population, the chances of death are much higher, but it is about access to healthcare. Sadly, we have wars going on, diseases in Lesotho, which aren't being looked after, it seems. Many people with HIV in developed countries have access to drugs that allow them to live a long, healthy, happy life. And due to widespread poverty, getting access might be a problem. Look at Lithuania. Alcoholism is the key in this case. You see how it starts with young population in all of these countries here, or nearly all of them. It's because these countries have a lot of immigration. You've got a lot of people moving there for work. I read in Qatar that it was up to 8 immigrants per one person living there, one native. Wow, you can see this, healthcare. So good healthcare, young population, less deaths in general. Immigration then, what's going on with that? Let's have a look at this video on Venezuela and try to identify why people are leaving. I've just got a friend that went over there for work though. Let's have a look.
คืนมามากอ่ะออมนอนไม่หลับลองตัวช่วยของพี่หลิง Laliate Soft and Safe ใหม่ซึม
Deep inside the capital of Venezuela, the last 2 years have been devastating. A global pandemic threatening an already dire situation. With medicine, water, power, and fuel shortages, the virus was not the only thing Venezuelans feared. It's what came as a result: hunger.
Yo por lo menos yo tengo 5 muchachos. Y eso no me alcanza a mí para nada.
Every day, Jefferson Gallegos and his wife ask themselves how they will feed their family. Years ago, when he says things were good in Venezuela, Gallegos worked for a national TV network. Today, he takes any job he can get, from working as a construction worker to teaching gym classes and unloading trucks.
Sadly, Venezuela had a bit of a market crash a while ago due to an oil crisis. So usually they would make quite a lot of money selling oil, but then it became very competitive and people were buying from other places. They had to lower prices, which led to a lot less income from abroad for the government. and a crash in what they were able to do in terms of providing services and food for the people. It's quite a sad situation.
Cualquier cosa que me llame, yo le echo pichón.
When there's work, there's food. But when there isn't, mom and dad sacrifice the little they have.
Cuando no teníamos trabajo ni uno de los dos, llegó el momento que en ese momento ya mi hija ya había nacido y nosotros dejábamos de comer para comprarle la leche a la niña.
In the last year of the pandemic, Venezuela's poverty rate increased by about 9%, according to a recent study. Around 3 out of every 4 Venezuelans now live in extreme poverty. But this isn't just happening here. Hunger is spreading like a virus across Latin America and the Caribbean. A new report by the UN found more than 59 million people in the region are going hungry. The UN is calling the hunger increase the, quote, most pronounced in relation to other regions. Are you concerned at all that this increase in poverty and hunger that was brought on in just the span of a year is something that's going to have lasting impacts for far longer than a year or 2 or 3?
Yes, unfortunately, when children are growing and then when there is something that hampers their growth, it can have a long-lasting impact. And we're concerned about that.
With COVID-19 and variants still posing a threat around the world, Gallegos and his family know this trip to the market is a blessing they're not taking for granted.
Okay, so we can see lots of issues are occurring in Venezuela. Not only are they having the oil crisis that I mentioned, but combining this with COVID is a recipe for disaster. So they have massive hyperinflation at the moment, meaning prices are going up dramatically. Massive unemployment across the land. Shortages of basic goods. The government didn't stockpile enough food for everybody. So political instability as well to try and maintain power and stability in the nation. As we said, lack of food and basic healthcare for people. And this obviously leads to higher crime and violence as people are desperate to survive. So of course we have a great degree of emigration from Venezuela. A lot of people leaving in order to get a better life. Okay, so actually this is a huge issue in the UK right now. It wasn't so much last year. This is a growing issue, particularly with people protesting outside hotels, and any offence an illegal immigrant commits in the UK is widely publicised. So what are the benefits and negatives around high immigration rates in the UK? Let's have a look from both sides of the spectrum.
Yesterday, William Hague said that voters should not make their decision in the referendum on the basis of controlling immigration. Do you agree?
William Hague made this statement yesterday. Nigel Farage, was he right?
Extraordinary, isn't it? This was the Hague who, of course, was the great Eurosceptic leader of the Conservative Party, who fought against the euro, who railed against European integration and appears to have really rather sold out. Look, whichever way you cut this, immigration is the #1 issue in British politics. It has been for some years. The opinion polls are astonishing. 77% of the British public want cuts to the numbers coming into Britain, and over half the voters want a reduction to near zero. So people are very upset, they're very unhappy, they're seeing the impact on local schools, they're seeing the impact on GP services, they're seeing the impact on housing or the inability of young people to get on the housing ladder. So that's why it's the #1 issue. And I think that the reason in this referendum why we have to talk about this is all the while, that, which is a British passport, or should be, but the first 2 words on it are European Union, that is available to 508 million people.
So from this, we can see Mr. Farage is very unhappy with immigration in the UK. He believes it's causing problems with a lot of services that people could normally have access to, and it's overwhelming services like the NHS, not to mention the $100 a night hotels that we've been hearing about.
Any of those people, if they wish, can come to this country. We have no control. The only way we get control is to vote to leave the European Union. And I think William Hague shows he's just completely lost touch with where the British public are on this issue.
Okay.
In my mind, this is the issue that will decide the referendum.
And that's why you said it didn't matter if we weren't slightly richer by leaving, as long as we cut immigration.
What I said was this. There are reports that say that we're better off with mass immigration. There are some reports that say we're slightly worse off economically with mass immigration. But to me, there's an issue called the quality of life. And I think that matters more than money. It's about thinking our kids and grandkids can have what we've had in terms of access to local healthcare, in terms of our kids getting into local primary schools, in terms of our overall quality of life. And that, David, I think, matters more than GDP rising by 1% per annum.
No doubt we'll do this.
Well, between 2001 and 2011, EU migrants put in 20 billion into the EU economy. They put more in than they take out. I know people are concerned about immigration, but we've got to look at the facts. These facts are in front of us. I mean, Sarah Wollaston, she exited the Brexit campaign today because she said that the figures that are coming out from the Brexit side are coming out false. And she said, and she's a GP, she said, like the NHS, a lot of information was stoked up about the NHS, and she said it's not true, it isn't true. So she has actually left the campaign and she's joined the Remain side. There are skeptics, Eurosceptics, that are joining the Remain side, even though they're still skeptical, because they see the economic problems of pulling out. We pull out, we are going to go into recession. Brexit is almost an anagram of recession. If you put two S's into the word Brexit, it's Brexession. They almost designed it that way.
What's that got to do with immigration, Eddie? Wasn't that the question?
Well,
immigration.
No, the point is immigration. If we pull out, then we become Norway. Norway still has to have the free movement of people in. So we become Norway, or are we going to become Albania?
No, we don't.
If we become Albania, the Prime Minister of Albania wants to join the EU, or we become Canada. The point is, you are from an immigrant family, and you're married to an immigrant. Why are you so against immigration when it worked?
Because we have to control it. We have to control it. Hang
on. You grew up. You're French Protestant from one side, you're German from the other side. Yeah. You should be the champion.
Well, I am.
The champion of people who are immigrants coming in. Look what they did. They got it to your situation.
Why do you want to stop people from the Commonwealth coming in? Because we have an open door to Southern.
Why do you want to stop people coming in from countries like
because I want to have an Australian-style point system where we get the right people coming to Britain in the right numbers.
Nigel, you told your followers to bully people to vote for you. This is not the right attitude for you to have.
Eddie, if we go on with current levels of immigration,
you've got to answer your own situation here.
Our population will be...
Okay, so you can see that the debate over immigration has been quite heated for some time in the UK, and now it's getting to a bit of a boiling point, which is very interesting living outside of the UK and seeing all of this. But these were the starting kind of discussions that happened 3 or 4 years ago. So basically, again, just to summarize, Nigel's family are immigrants, and he married an immigrant as well. However, he is not saying let's ban all immigrants. He's saying let's stop illegal immigration into the UK. And he also said that he's okay for legal immigration, meaning if you have the correct paperwork and you fulfill the obligations, like the Australian point system, where if you have enough points and these jobs are desired, you will be allowed to immigrate over there. Whereas on Izzy's side, he basically wants everything to remain open. It's an interesting situation. He thinks that we can sustain it and sustain this quality of life.
80 million.
Okay, so let's think about the benefits of immigration. You know, they work in healthcare, construction, agriculture, if it's legal, of course. And they start their own businesses, and they contribute massively to taxation. As Eddie said, European Union immigrants contribute massively to tax in the UK, which then can be used to promote and help other services. One good thing is population balance. We know places like Japan have a massively shrinking population. And in order to counter that, they're going to need to open their doors to immigration in the future. Otherwise, there won't be enough young people working to sustain the old. Also, a young workforce is really important in a multitude of countries. They can support the pension systems. As I said, 20% of taxable income is going on pensions at the moment in the UK. Also, it makes kind of an interesting melting pot where you've got a lot of people together. And there's an argument that we demonstrate leadership in the UK if we accept a lot of immigrants. However, there are negatives and they must be addressed as well. Healthcare and education. If it damages healthcare access and education for residents in the country, then it becomes a problem. What about housing? If immigration takes over housing that domestic residents were entitled to in the past, does that cause problems? Absolutely it does. What about communities that illegally enter the UK and refuse to learn English? They just stay in their own community and refuse to accept any forms of the new culture and maintain their own. This creates a problem with identity and values that a lot of locals feel, as we can see in the current media. And also, an influx of immigrants, if they are legal, leads to wage suppression, the idea that there's a lot more workers in that industry so that wages can be cut. This also might affect people that are used to a higher wage. And obviously, job competition makes it more difficult for domestic residents to get a job. It does cause a rise in nationalism and xenophobia. where people might just dislike somebody of a different culture without even knowing them. And it can affect roads and transport. And like we said, all kinds of utilities in the UK that are built for a smaller population. So have a look at your country online. Identify the immigration and emigration rates and see what's going on. Which countries do you think have the highest immigration and which countries do you think have the lowest immigration rates? Let me show you. Look at Qatar. The Middle East is so popular. They offer so much money. It's irresistible to so many colleagues of mine and so many other people to go over there, particularly in oil and gas. Singapore as well has a great immigration rate, and Switzerland, all safe countries. But look at the emigration rate. There's Venezuela that we looked at in the video. Syria, of course, a lot of strife over there at the moment. Myanmar, internal warfare, a lot of struggles. So here are some reasons why they're occurring, like Syria with the civil war. We saw the economic collapse in Venezuela, and there's serious conflicts at the moment in Myanmar. On the border with Thailand, there's a few issues at the moment as well. And then look at why people are moving to Qatar. Look at the employment opportunities. There's a lot of money available there, like I said. UAE, just the same concept. And Luxembourg. Luxembourg is known for its high standard of living and a quality life that you can have. All right, so quickly make a mind map of all factors you can think of that leads to population growth. Let me show you it. All these things that we studied before. Make sure you've got all these in the brain. Okay, pause the video if you want to. And let's have a quick look at the population pyramid. Have you seen anything like this before? Interesting shape, right? So it looks like a needle. We can see at the younger age range, the population is smaller than the mid-age range. So in this country, the largest amount of people are between 45 and 65. So it's an aging population, right? And the younger population is slightly reduced. And wow, we've still got a few people in the 95 to 99 range. And look at that. Women are outliving men. Isn't that fascinating? More older people, less younger people. Guess where it is? It is Europe. Classic. Less children per family and good healthcare. That's why it looks like this. Look at this population pyramid, though. Isn't that cray-cray? So massive amount of young people. Gosh, after your 30s, you're lucky to be alive. No one was in the 90s like we saw in the other one. What country do you think this is? Africa. Why? Lots of children per family, poor healthcare. Next, guess where this one is? Interesting. Fewer young, but look at the balance here from 25 to 60. Kind of straight, isn't it? This one is Thailand. Why? Lower birth rates than before, and the population is kind of aging. So this block here is slowly going to move up and be replaced by this block. But look at this trend. Very worrying, isn't it? Very worrying for a country where they're going to reduce their population significantly over time. Right, let's do an exam question then. Discuss the benefits and challenges of an aging population of a country. So all we need to do for this is we split it into the benefits and then the challenges. And you've got to make sure you write in sentences. I will give bullet points, but you must use sentences, okay? So challenges. Here we go. The problems. As people get older, it's going to be more healthcare costs funded by the government, more pension costs funded by the young, less labour force as the population ages, they're going to have to rely on immigration. Increased dependency ratio, the old require the young. What about the benefits though? Workforce is going to be experienced with an older population. 20 years experience per person is going to lead to great outcomes. What about sectors like ageing healthcare? That's going to be super popular, isn't it? Going to be lots of care homes out and about. Saving and investment. Older people tend to be quite diligent with their savings. And what about the fact that when they're retired, they could volunteer. They could help other communities. We see that all the time. It gives them a sense of purpose and place. I did create a model answer here. If you want to see it, you can pause the video and take a look. So I took away these kind of points and made them into more readable, digestible sentences. And this is kind of what your exam should look like, where you explain it and give a conclusion where you weigh up the positives and negatives and maybe choose one side that's stronger than the other based on your belief system. Next, discuss whether or not a rise in the birth rate will benefit an economy. What do you think? Again, 8-mark question, 2 sides with a conclusion. You pick something that you feel strongly about and just argue why that is more important than the other side, or you can be completely in the middle. It's up to you. So will a rise in the birth rate benefit an economy? Let me show you the mark scheme. It will. Higher birth rate increases the labour force, greater output potential. They might have a greater demand in society for goods and services. They might move around a lot, but what if they leave the country? That's not good, is it? And through working, the government can make more tax money and use that to help the population or the elderly. But that might not be a good thing. There's a lot more dependence. There's a lot more people that need looking after. So resources, healthcare resources with the opportunity cost, instead of going to helping the elderly, they might have to move those resources to helping the young now. So the sacrifice is elderly healthcare advancement. Some people will have to leave their job. It could be the mother or the father in the modern age to help their child grow and be nurtured. So this means they've got one person in the family that's not providing employment and therefore not paying taxes. And it could cause an overpopulation problem where there's not enough resources to go around, as we saw with deep immigration in the UK. I've made a model answer here. Take your time, have a look through it, pause the video. All right, so ultimately then, what we needed to look at were the factors that affect population growth, reasons for different rate of population growth, how people feel about it, the effects of the size of the structure of the population on different countries, and a couple of example questions. That's all we needed to get through today. Have a great day, and I'll see you all again.